twitch fibres. So the reason some people are better at running a marathon while others are better at sprinting is linked to the fact that there are different types of muscle fibres. Okay, so we have slow twitch muscle fibres, and these are also known as type 1 muscle fibres. So, slow oxidative fibres, what does that mean? Well, that means that they basically use oxygen to create energy or to provide energy. Because they use oxygen, these slow twitch muscle fibres are red in colour. Other characteristics is that they contain large amounts of what is known as mitochondria. Mitochondria are the energy points within a muscle, and if you think of a bonfire, okay, so a bonfire that's not lit, okay, and then you put a firelighter on it, without oxygen, okay, that bonfire will not light. Alright, so mitochondria are the energy producing sites within a muscle that uses oxygen. Now, because type 1 muscle fibers use oxygen to provide energy, the more mitochondria that you have in the muscle, the better. In terms of activities that type 1 muscle fibers are best used for, you're looking at endurance type activities, for example, long distance running. Let's look at the other end of the spectrum, and we have type 2B fast twitch muscle fibers. So these are also known as fast glycolytic fibers. Now these are known as fast glycolytic fibers because they're required for explosive short duration events. Okay, because they haven't got time to use oxygen as an energy source, these are white in colour. So whereas type 1 are red, these are white. Because they don't need to use oxygen for energy, they don't need to have a lot of mitochondria, so they contain low levels of mitochondria. So the best type of activities that they're used for are strength activities and other anaerobic type work. So type 1 is known as anaerobic type activities, type 2B is strength or anaerobic type. Then in between you've got type 2A. Technical term for these is called fast oxidative glycolytic. So they've got elements of both, and because they've got elements of both, they're kind of be pink in colour, a mixture between white and red, and they contain an intermediate numbers of mitochondria, and you're looking at, from an activity point of view, you're looking at between 400 and 800 meters in terms of activities. Okay, depending on how you train these fast oxidative glycolytic fibers can be trained to become type 1 fibers. Okay, so this is a summary. So slow twitch muscle fibers are most suited for long distance running to allow oxygen to come into the system so that it can be used for energy. Fast twitch type 2B are looking for very heavy weights training activities. So I've got this man here doing chin-ups, okay, which is quite a heavy activity, can't do that many repetitions. And then you've got fast twitch type 2A, and you could argue from a resistance training process, if this gentleman was lifting light weights and was able to do this for a long period of time, then this would be a fast twitch type 2A workout. Okay, but don't forget, from if you're looking for a track and athletics type activity, then the 800 meters would probably be the best example of someone with type 2A muscle fibers. Okay, so just as a review, I'd like you to describe the two main types of muscle fibers used in the prompts listed. Okay, so use the worksheet to help you answer this question. Okay, muscle work. So now there are three different types of muscle contraction. You have concentric contraction. So when a muscle contracts, it develops tension and shortens. Therefore, this is a concentric contraction. Concentric muscle work occurs during the lifting phase of a movement, and that's the key. So whenever you're lifting a movement or lifting a weight, you're performing a concentric contraction. Okay, and let's see an example here. Okay, so this is a front kick in karate. So the whole action is up and then back. Okay, so I'll show you again. Okay, now I'm going to show you the concentric part. Okay, so that straightening of the leg is the concentric element of the kick, and to perform that straightening, the quadriceps, the muscles at the front of the leg, that's the part that's getting smaller to lift the leg up. So I'll show you again. So this is the whole action, and this is the concentric part of the lift. Now, an eccentric contraction is when a muscle contracts, the muscle develops tension and then lengthens at the same time. Eccentric muscle work occurs during the lowering phase of a movement. Okay, so let's have a look at an example. Okay, so eccentric work, this lady is doing the lowering part of a bicep curl, and as you can see, as it's going down, this muscle's still under tension, but it's lengthening. Okay, so I'll show you again. So as it's going down, the red part is getting longer. Alright, and that's an eccentric contraction. And then finally you have static or isometric contractions, and this is when a muscle contracts and develops tension and the muscle length remains the same. Therefore no movement will occur at the joint angle, so a static or isometric contraction takes place. So think about a plank in a gym, or if you're pushing your hands together or pushing against the wall. Okay, there's no movement but you're feeling the tension, and that's an isometric contraction. So what I'd like you to do is to perform these exercises and see what type of muscle contraction is being performed, whether it's concentric or eccentric. So while straightening the knees as you stand up, what type of contraction do the quadriceps perform? Whilst bending the knees as you sit down, what type of contraction do the quadriceps perform? Whilst performing a press up, what type of contraction do the triceps perform on the lowering phase first, and then the lifting phase? And then whilst raising the heels off the floor, what type of contraction will the gastrocnemius and soleus perform in the lifting phase? Okay, so while straightening the knees as you stand up, this part, and this part, what type of contraction do the quadriceps perform? Whilst bending down as you sit down, now, and now, and now, what type of contraction do the quadriceps perform? Now let's look at this one. On the lowering phase of this press up, what contraction is the triceps performing? Okay, and then on the lifting phase, what type of contraction do the triceps perform? And then finally, while you're raising your heels off the floor, performing a heel raise, what type of contraction will the gastrocnemius and the soleus perform? Okay, muscle group actions on the joints. So to evaluate whether an exercise is safe or effective, you need to be aware of the movements that are possible at various joints in the body and understand the muscles or muscle groups responsible for producing these movements. Now, in the skeletal system section, we looked at different joint actions. So we looked at flexion, extension, elevation, depression, circumduction, lateral flexion, lateral extension, abduction, adduction. These are all joint actions that you learn or hopefully have learned by now. And what we're doing, we're putting this together to find out what muscles cause what joint actions. So the muscles that I would like you to look at are the biceps, the hip flexors, triceps and quadriceps, latissimus dorsi and hamstrings, deltoids and abductors, pectoralis major and adductors, trapezius, gluteus maximus, rhomboids and tibialis anterior, rectus abdominis and soleus, erector spinae, gastrocnemius, external and internal obliques. Okay, so let's have a look. So we've got muscle and we've got an action on the joint. So bicep flexes the elbow and supinates the forearm. Okay, now if you haven't learnt the joint actions, this part is going to be a bit challenging for you, so you really need to make sure that you understand the joint actions. Okay, so biceps flexes the elbow and supinates the forearm. The triceps extends the elbow. The deltoid abducts the arm and flexes the shoulder. Okay, when you do forward shoulder flexion. Latissimus dorsi adducts, extends and outwardly rotates the arm. Pectoralis major is responsible for horizontal flexion and adduction of the shoulder. Trapezius elevates and depresses and retracts the shoulder blades. The rhomboids retracts the shoulders and the shoulder girdle. The rectus abdominis flexes the thoracic and lumbar spine. The erector spinae extends and rotates the thoracic spine. The external obliques laterally flexes and rotates the thoracic spine. Internal obliques laterally flexes and rotates the thoracic spine. Okay, finally we have the iliopsoas, which is also known as your hip flexors. They flex the hip. Okay, that's lifting the leg in front of you. Gluteus maximus extends the hip, so taking the leg behind you. Abductors abduct and outwardly rotate the hip. Adductors adduct and inwardly rotate the hip. The hamstrings flex the knee. So when you're bringing your heel to your bottom, that's a flexion of the knee joint. The quadriceps extends the knee. Gastrocnemius plantar flexes the ankle. Soleus plantar flexes the ankle. And the tibialis anterior dorsiflexes the ankle.